Hello everybody and welcome back to the F1 2021 My Team Career Mode with me, Dan, and the Radiant Racing team. We're spilling over into the second half of the season today. We're in round 9 in an old classic Spa, Belgium, a circuit which I've historically struggled with, particularly at the Eau Rouge corner up the hill. Thankfully today though, no issues at all with that corner. Until a bit later on in the race, but we'll find out exactly why that was the case in a little while. Don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell if you want to know when the next race is uploaded, and of course let us know in the comments what was your highlight of the Grand Prix, and are you looking forward to the F1 2022 game? I'm sure we're not far away from an announcement. We get onto the starting grid, and it's Valtteri Bottas leading the charge away from Max Verstappen on the front row of the grid there, followed by Lewis Hamilton and Verstappen's other teammate Sergio Perez. The two McLarens line up side by side, Daniel Ricciardo ahead of Lando Norris. Then we have Radiant Slothz ahead of Ferrari's first driver Charles Leclerc. And rounding out the top 10 we have Pierre Gasly and Fernando Alonso. Moving down the order, we have Carlos Sainz, who just misses out on the top 10. He's alongside Yuki Tsunoda. Then we have Esteban Ocon. He's alongside Sebastian Vettel in the first of the Aston Martins. Kimi Raikkonen in the first of the Alfa Romeos alongside Lance Stroll in the other Aston. Then we have the other Alfa of Antonio Giovinazzi alongside the first Williams, George Russell. Zhou Guanyu in the other Radiant car lines up alongside Mick Schumacher on the penultimate row. And finally, Nicolas Latifi and Nikita Mazepin. Well, here we go on the grid at Belgium, an old classic circuit. Let's see if we can get a good result here for the Radiant Racing team, who have now gone back to a light green colour on the leaderboard on the left-hand side. As we get away, Radiant Slothz immediately gets past Lando Norris and then loses positions again to Charles Leclerc as they go 3 wide into turn 1. It looks as though he has dropped a position to Leclerc, but he is fighting with Norris up towards Eau Rouge. They go side by side into the corner. Incredible they don't touch there, and Norris is going to sit right in the gearbox of Radiant Slothz. Up ahead we've got some fighting going on. Charles Leclerc, Daniel Ricciardo, Sergio Perez and Lewis Hamilton duking it out. Up ahead the race leaders Max Verstappen and Valtteri Bottas are going at it. We've got 6 cars side by side at the end of the Kemmel Straight, still side by side as they come round and start the descent down the hill. Verstappen and Bottas still bolting, Hamilton and Perez still duking it out. It looks as though Leclerc and Radiant Slothz have won their mini battles with the McLarens as they continue the way down. Everyone's still getting away nicely. Coming down into Pouon. Charles Leclerc actually getting ahead of the Red Bull of Sergio Perez. Is there damage on that car? There was a lot of scrapping going on at the start of the race. It's not unlikely to have happened. As we come round the final couple of corners into this amazing Sector 3, flat to the floor came the Honda power unit from the Radiant Racing car. Help him stay ahead of the McLarens and also the other Honda-powered cars, the Alpha TYRES, sitting in the wings, waiting for someone to have some misfortune. As Radiant Slothz is all over the back of Daniel Ricciardo coming down towards the bus stop. He's going to look up the inside. Sergio Perez is in the way, but he's not going to be fazed by it, and he gets past Ricciardo. Slight bang on the wheel there as they try not to slide out of control going into the final part of the chicane. What an opener to this race. Let's go aboard with Radiant Slothz at the start. There's Norris on his left-hand side. So it's a good start compared to Norris, but Ricciardo and Hamilton. Ricciardo, Hamilton and Perez all slow him down there, allowing Leclerc to slide up through the middle of the McLaren and the Radiant Racing car, and then it's just a small lift on the way up the hill as he fights with Lando Norris. Let's go on board with Norris. Initially launches quite well and then bogs down. Ricciardo steaming away ahead of him. Then they go 3 wide. Ricciardo actually crashing into Lewis Hamilton there. Hamilton shoves him back quite rightly. And there's Leclerc slipping through. Radiant Slothz poised alongside the McLaren, but is able to get the better of them. Sponsorships missing from the Radiant Racing car due to Codemaster's incredible work on the game once again, with this game crashing at least 4 times before I was able to save a replay of this Grand Prix, meaning I had to do this race about 4 times. The gloves are off, the elbows are out for this attempt, so watch out everyone else. And watch out Sergio Perez as Radiant Slothz comes storming up the hill. Absolutely baked right now onto the back of the Red Bull. Pulls alongside towards the end of the Camel Straight. There's the Ferrari who's somehow managed to stay ahead of the Red Bull despite being considerably slower. We did suspect that there could be some damage on Perez's car or perhaps some unreliability. Daniel Ricciardo's one to watch as well, considering he crashed into the side of Lewis Hamilton at the start of the race. As they come down the hill, Radiant Slothz already pulling out a second lead over Perez. There's definitely something wrong with that car. As we rejoin them now onto the start of the DRS activations. Perez has managed to come back into range and will no doubt have a massive amount of overspeed. He's already caught the back of the Radiant Racing car, which is not quite at the top of its game just yet. Zhou Guanyu still down in 20th as we see Perez gliding by with no issues whatsoever. Radiant Slothz nearly runs into the back of him and has to submit to 6th position again, which is where he started the race. In the background, we've got Ricciardo and Norris fighting it out down the hill. Looks as though they're going side by side. Ricciardo appears to have gone backwards as we rejoin Radiant Slothz, as Charles Leclerc's pace seems to have died away and allowed Perez and Slothz to catch up with their DRS. Coming down towards the bus stop chicane. No doubt these three will be battling all the way to the end of the Camel Straight from here, unless one of them bins it into the barriers. Closing up nicely into the bus stop chicane. A short burst of DRS down the pit straight will surely help them here. Charles Leclerc, to our understanding, driving the second fastest car of the bunch. However, in the hands of Radiant Slothz, he's able to do magical things with this car, which is still officially Spec 1. As they come onto the straight, DRS is active. Sergio Perez already looking to the outside of Charles Leclerc. Radiant Slothz now looking to the inside, free abreast into the corner, as Charles Leclerc tries to defend the pair of them, but he just is unable to. The overspeed for the Red Bull and the Radiant Racing car, unbelievable compared to the Ferrari without DRS. He's not able to do anything. Let's ride on board to see how far back Radiant Slothz was. Cruises by, maxing out the limiter there as he came into the end of the straight. Goes slightly wide on the second part of that chicane there, but not to matter. Charles Leclerc, as we will now see, was already far, far away behind. There goes Perez. For some reason, Leclerc goes weaving all over the track after being passed by Radiant Slothz. It hasn't really helped him by the looks of things. Regardless,
box.
P5 for Radiant Slothz. Charles Leclerc has dropped back somewhat, so he was indeed holding these two up. And the two Honda-powered cars will go off in chase of the podium now. Up ahead, Lewis Hamilton, just 3 seconds up the road. Radiant Slothz into the pits. Anyone else come in? There's Hamilton and Verstappen in as well. Charles Leclerc also joins them in the pit lane. I believe Daniel Ricciardo may have already come in earlier on. Verstappen very close to crashing into the back of Radiant Slothz there. And I am mistaken, Daniel Ricciardo is now in the pit lane. As Radiant Slothz gets away, that was a lightning pit stop. He's actually gained time over Leclerc, potentially, as they come out back onto the circuit. So Radiant Slothz is going to rejoin behind Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton, at the end of the lap, has managed to get past the Haas of Mick Schumacher, but is now trapped behind King Latifi as they come down towards the bus stop chicane. Radiant Slothz likewise will have to get past the Haas one way or another. Or not, as the Haas comes into the pits. Jumps ahead of Latifi as well. Multiple cars coming in now. Radiant Slothz up to 7th position. Sergio Perez somewhere on pit exit. Where is he going to be? There he is, just off the left of the scoreboard. The leaderboard down the left-hand side. So Sergio Perez losing out massively to the undercut there as Radiant Slothz potentially does not cut that corner. And we rejoin him on lap 7. Radiant Slothz behind Max Verstappen. We've got 3 cars ahead yet to stop, so this is net P4. But he's closed the gap to Verstappen, and he's actually gaining on him as we come down the back straight. Just in the slipstream, he's going to go up the inside of Max Verstappen onto the grass somewhat. And is able to get past Verstappen before Blanchimont. And is well cleared as we get into the bus stop chicane. Antonio Giovinazzi, who has been royally holding up Lewis Hamilton, gets out of the way. Lewis Hamilton's going to get DRS down the pit straight, but it's not going to help him for long. Radiant Slothz, incredibly, with a massive lockup, is up into a podium position. Perez, behind, has got to up his game if he's going to catch up. Max Verstappen actually came into the pit, so there must have been an issue or some damage on that car as he tried to clear traffic, and it's not helped him. As we see Radiant Sloth's DRS open, he goes to the inside of Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton absolutely powerless to defend with the Radiant Racing driver as he gets to the end of the Camel Straight. Great stuff for Radiant Sloths, and another good result for the team if he can keep it together for just a few more laps as we ride on board. This was the pass on the 2 championship leaders. Up the inside of Verstappen, very little resistance, all things considered. There's Hamilton ahead, trying to get past Giovinazzi. Big lockup for Radiant Sloths. Sends it slightly wide coming out of the chicane. And then using up as much ERS battery as possible coming down. Lock up into turn 1 as well. Hasn't really cost him too much though, as we see the sky beginning to fog and overcast slightly as they begin lap 8. And here we go, into the slipstream, DRS open, and you can already hear the overspeed of the engine. He's well clear of the Mercedes. A surprise perhaps to the Radiant Racing team in their efforts to reduce the drag on the car and keep the engine power competitive has worked magnificently as we see Radiant Slothz to a massive drift as he comes down the back straight. The rain has begun to fall, and behind him Lewis Hamilton is able to keep very close. Valtteri Bottas still 5.5 seconds up the road with 2 laps to go. We'll see if anything can change with the weather. Perhaps it's just a quick spell. DRS is still activated for Lewis Hamilton, although we are seeing a wet line appearing on the track as the cars try to take the normal racing line. Radiant Slothz sliding again. Perhaps conditions worsening out there. Down at the bottom of the leaderboard, Zhou Guanyu actually just lost a position to Max Verstappen. He's trying to recover after that strange pit stop earlier on. Hamilton then still gets DRS down the back straight, so no issues with the rain so far, just visually looks a bit damp on circuit. As I'm pretty sure, yeah, Radiant Slothz now sliding all over the place as there's a massive slide there as he comes around down the hill, and Lewis Hamilton's knocked up and smashed into the back of him. Hamilton knocked himself out of the race with that move there. What on earth happened there? Let's go on board with the 7-time world champion. His lapse in judgment. He stamps on the gas into a braking zone. Historically, not a good idea. As we rejoin Radiant Slothz now, Perez has royally caught him as he slips and slides his way back down the back straight. It looks as though conditions have begun to worsen, but the thing is, there's just 1 lap to go, and switching to the intermediates is not going to be worth it. So all drivers are going to have to try and put up with the wet weather as they come down for one final lap of Spa. Front wheels completely locked for Radiant Slothz there, no grip whatsoever, as Perez attempts to go around the outside of him. Charles Leclerc now back into the mix. The three who fought earlier on are now fighting over the 2 spaces on the podium. But I'm sorry to say, folks, there's only room for 2. So let's see who gets it. Radiant Slothz still ahead. Sergio Perez also P3. DRS deactivated. So we don't need to worry about a 1-second gap as he comes up Eau Rouge. Definitely much slower now. Massive slide once again. Sergio Perez and Charles Leclerc hold it together just about. And he's going to have to go super defensive, using up every bit of ERS he can to hold position ahead of Perez. Perez maintains position and goes to the outside, opens the door for Charles Leclerc. Now the Ferrari and the Red Bull are side by side as Radiant Slothz starts losing control once again. Perez now looks to the outside of Radiant Slothz, but the door shuts. Radiant Slothz goes defensive as they come down into the hairpin. Perez goes to the outside. Radiant Slothz runs wide on the wet track. Charles Leclerc tries to go up the inside. Lando Norris also a contender here. They're 3 abreast as they come down the hill. Radiant Slothz pulls ahead. Lando Norris slams into the back of Sergio Perez. There's a piece of his front wing coming off. Charles Leclerc tries to go up the inside into Pouon. He completely loses control of the car there. Nearly hits Sergio Perez as they come rolling down the hill. Lando Norris has to back out of it because he's lost too much downforce from that end plate coming off. There's Yuki Tsunoda in the background. He's still got a part to play in this as we see a big drift from Radiant Slothz as they come down towards the back straight. And we go back to Lance Stroll in comedic fashion on the section of track that we've just seen. Up ahead, Esteban Ocon starts to lose control, spins wide, and Lance Stroll should have gone to Specsavers, crashes directly into the Alpine, whose wheels disappear randomly. This is on board with Kimi Raikkonen at the same section. Antonio Giovinazzi ahead, goes off the track. Kimi Raikkonen smashes into the Alpine, whose wheels have disappeared, and then the whole car disappears as we go on board with Zhou Guanyu at the same part of the track, who is the only driver to avoid the collision, has made up multiple places there just by not ramming into the back of everyone. He's nearly into the points as we see Radiant Slothz slip and slide all the way around the final section of the track. Just 2 corners to go. He's got a Ferrari in his gearbox, essentially. Massive lockup. He runs wide into the first part of the chicane, holds the inside, and now it's a drag race 6 feet towards the line. But Radiant Racing have clenched the victory. Radiant Slothz with a P2, and Charles Leclerc picks up P3 ahead of Sergio Perez. They drive, for some reason, they crash into each other just unnecessarily aggressively around the in-lap, and Radiant Slothz incredibly manages to get round turn 1 without holding the wheel. What a magnificent driver. But it's all about Valtteri Bottas today, the man who battled with Verstappen, likely crashed into him and caused him some damage, causing him to go slow. Valtteri Bottas picks up the win. No sign of his teammate Lewis Hamilton, unfortunately, who decided to ram into the back of another car for no reason. And Charles Leclerc happy to be carrying Ferrari's hopes forward even further. Carlos Sainz also picking up a point, I believe, near the end of the race. We'll have to see if he managed to survive the final lap as well. And, well, that'll be good for Radiant Racing against McLaren. Will it do much in their battle with Ferrari? So moving on to the race results, it was actually fastest lap for Radiant Slothz as well, so he picks up 19 points there, a crucial point in the battle for the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship. Behind the podium finishers, we of course have Sergio Perez. He was followed by the damaged Lando Norris, Yuki Tsunoda, Pierre Gasly, Fernando Alonso, Sebastian Vettel, and finally Carlos Sainz, with Zhou Guanyu just missing out on the points by about 20 seconds. Moving over to the Drivers' Championship, thanks to Max Verstappen's poor performance, Sergio Perez closes the gap to just 6 points. Behind them, Valtteri Bottas moves up a position ahead of Lewis Hamilton, 34 points behind the leader. Back to 5th place, Radiant Slothz is now the almost the 5th driver to reach 100 points. He maintains position ahead of Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, Daniel Ricciardo, and Yuki Tsunoda, who moves ahead of his teammates. Further down the order, of course, Pierre Gasly, 1 point behind Yuki Tsunoda. Then we have Esteban Ocon, Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, Kimi Raikkonen and Sebastian Vettel, George Russell, and finally the non-point scorers, Zhou Guanyu, Antonio Giovinazzi, Mick Schumacher, Nicholas Latifi and Nikita Mazepin. Over in the Constructors' Championship, Red Bull maintain their lead despite Verstappen's poor performance, and Mercedes do not gain much ground due to Lewis Hamilton. In the battle for third place, Ferrari still maintain third position, but the gap is getting ever smaller. McLaren are not far behind, and neither are Radiant Racing. Then it's a jump and a bound back to AlphaTauri, Alpine, Aston Martin, Alfa Romeo, Williams, and finally Haas. That's all. We'll catch you in the next one.